Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the next episode of Artistically Black, the continuing conversation on the labor and love of art and the expansiveness of the Black community and the connection between the two. I am your host, Dannielle Hutchinson. I'm so excited for you to join us today. We have a great show for you today. Today, I welcome back an author of a book that I love, one of my very first guests that I had when I was doing story time. I'm happy to have her with me. She is an author, a recovered lawyer, and the assistant professor of creative writing at Howard University. Please welcome Tricia Elam Walker.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
How are you? How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm excited. I'm so happy that you are back with us to talk about your new book because I loved the first one. If you haven't gotten it, friends, you need to get it. Anna Akua Goes to School. I love it. And I'm excited to talk about this new book, Dream Street.
Yeah.
And so what I want to start with is I want to ask you what was the writing process and the inspiration like for this book?
So this was really different, Dannielle, because this book I did with my cousin. And my cousin is a renowned illustrator. She's won prizes. She's been doing children's book illustration for a while. And she's also a fine artist. We kind of grew up together, we grew up together pretty much. And that's in the Roxbury section of Boston, which is the African-American community. It was then, it's very gentrified, of course, now. In the 1950s and 60s. And so life was very different than it is now. But we had an amazing, wonderful childhood filled with creativity, nurturing, and love. And we wanted to represent that, and we wanted to show it to, children nowadays. And so that was the genesis of it. But we kept talking about how we wanted to do something together. And she had these collages that, she had created. And she said to me, why don't you look at them and see if you can make, a book out of it? And at first I was sort of like a little taken aback because I'm used to, figuring out the story myself out of my head. But once I started looking at her work, which I already knew and loved, I could see the stories in her art because art is storytelling as well. Mm-hmm. And so as I started looking at the different collages, I started seeing people who all lived on a street. And I thought about, what they dreamed about. And then I was like, okay, this is Dream Street. So the book is really a series of vignettes of people who live on Dream Street and how they grow and nurture their dreams. And so the writing process was really different only because, as I said, I had the artwork first and had to create a story from that. But once I was able to see the story and see the characters, as I looked at the pictures, it just kind of started to flow.
Oh, that is awesome. That is awesome. So, Dream Street is based on your childhood neighborhood of Roxbury. Mm-hmm. And what was it like growing up in Roxbury? What were the things that inspired you growing up there?
Absolutely. First of all, I like to say, especially to the kids who might be listening, we did not have computers. We did not have cell phones. We barely had a TV. My mom would hide the TV, literally.
Oh, no.
Bring it out when she wanted the whole family to watch something together. But there was no like having a TV in your own room or watching TV without her, knowing what you were watching. That did not happen. So, and she was also a children's librarian and loved books, and we had to read. And at first it kind of felt like punishment because, we knew that other kids had TVs and different things, and people would talk about what shows they're watching, and I knew nothing about that. But once I started appreciating the worlds that the books could transform me to, and the characters that I got to know in those pages, I loved it, and I wanted to be able to create that for someone else. So that was one thing. We had to read. We played outside. We had, we used to call it a forest in the back of our house, but it was really just a lot of trees. And we'd make up games. And of course, we the hide and seek, and, we just pretend different things were going on. We were very creative and imaginative. It was mostly me, her, my cousin, and my brother. And then when it was, cold outside, it was Boston, so there was snow. So we, got our sleds, we went down the hill. We found things. We knew our neighbors knew us. Sometimes they knew us a little too much, because I'd come home and my mother would say, I know that you did such and such. And I was like, dang, how, why? I could never figure it out. And then, all kinds of people lived in our neighborhood. So our pediatrician, who was African American, lived in our neighborhood. Our dentist, who was African American, lived in our neighborhood. Some of our teachers who were African American lived in the neighborhood, as well as the mailman. Just a range of people who were, creating their lives. We could see them. They cared about us. They encouraged us, and we felt like we could do anything. We could be anything. We also had, on days when, say, we couldn't play outside, we called this room the room off the living room. And it was actually like my mother's junk place. But we went in there and found adventures. We made costumes. We made up plays. Sometimes my parents would take us to the neighborhood nursing home, and we'd perform them for older residents in there. So we just did all kinds of stuff. We cooked, it was great.
That was the place where dreams were built.
Absolutely.
So you work as a assistant professor of creative writing at Howard University. And so because you write these books and you write these children's books, what is one of the tips or tricks or tools that you pass on to your students on their journey in creative writing? How do you help them find their dreams and their inspiration?
Oh, I love that question. A couple of things. I mean, first of all, students have stories in them. They all have had experiences, even though they're only 18, 19, 20, etc. They've all had experiences. They've all known different kinds of feelings. And so I talk to them about that, bringing yourself into these stories that you want to create, but also making sure you make characters that are believable, that are three-dimensional, the art of description, making sure you pay attention to details, being observant when you're out in the world, eavesdropping, being nosy, listening to people's conversations so you know how people talk, so you can create authentic dialogue, reading your work out loud so you can hear maybe a wrong note or hear how things flow. I also talked to them about having a beginning, middle, and end, so you kind of have an arc. I remember a writer saying to me, a story should be like a wheelbarrow ride. Now, a lot of people don't even know what a wheelbarrow ride would be like anymore, but what it basically means, it goes up and it comes down. So something has to happen. So something's different, something changes from the beginning to the end. And so those are just some of the little small things that we talk about.
Awesome. Can you tell us about some of the residents that we find on Dream Street in this book? And if they're based on some real people that you met living with in Roxbury?
Sure. Great question. All the characters are made up, but they do have some, composite features of people we came across. So, we have the hat lady, for instance, who always wore a hat, even when she wasn't necessarily going to church. We have her in there. And the wonderful thing about my cousin's artwork is that she's a collagist. So it's like, even though on in the book, it's just on one level, one texture. When you look at the originals, they have many textures. It's mixed media. So you can see, even in the book, you can see newspaper clippings inside of the artwork. You can see photographs inside of the artwork, which I really love. There's a gentleman sitting on a stoop who used to be a mailman. So I think about the mailman that we had in our neighborhood. He's actually, I named him after my uncle. So we also have some names in there who represent people who are meaningful to us. There's a little girl on her grandmother's lap in a hammock in one of the vignettes. And her name is Song, which is my cousin's granddaughter's name. There are two children. There's a little girl who's jumping rope She's a jump rope champion. She can double dutch. She can jump on one foot. She can turn around and touch the ground. All that. And she's named after a niece of mine. The librarian is, of course, named Miss Barbara because that was my mom's name. So there are those kind of details in there. This book is really a dream come true for us because when we were little, my cousin was always picking up things that I thought were junk. So she'd pick up, I don't know, old pieces of paper, leaves off the street, dirty money dirty pennies that everyone else would say, leave those on the ground. And she would create out of them. She was always cutting up paper and pasting it and moving it around. I was always the nosy one writing down what people were saying, as I tell my students to do, making up stories. And so the fact that we were doing that when we were small, and now that has grown into our careers, and now we created this book together, is really a dream for us. So Dream Street is a dream on many levels.
You've been back to Dream Street? Have you been back to your old neighborhood to see
yeah.
how it's changed, or does it have the same kind of charm and wonder that it once had when you were young?
I've absolutely been back a number of times. I was actually just back there recently because one of the Boston Public Library branches was in our neighborhood, and they just renovated it. So they had a big ribbon cutting. Sorry. And the mayor came and they invited Aqua and I to come and read from the book. And it was lovely to go back there and do that. She still lives there. So I visit her often, and absolutely, I have seen the differences. It's very expensive to buy a house, but it still retains a lot of its charm for me. There are places that aren't there anymore. I remember the little penny candy store that we used to walk to that's long gone, that kind of thing. Our house is long gone, but my grandmother's house is still there, so it's kind of nice.
That's nice. Is there, because I know that we may have to go, so we have to go soon, but I want to ask, is there, my favorite takeaway from this book is Mr. Sidney says, don't wait to have a great day, create one. And I think that is a really important theme in this book, about dreams and just about, staying true to who you are and following your passions. What is the one thing that you want people to take away from this book?
I think the one thing I want people to take away is that you're never too young and you're never too old to dream and make those dreams happen. Dreams are important. Always believe in them and do what it takes to make them happen. So I often talk to kids about what do they love doing that they could do, in their sleep, that they could do forever, that they want to do even when their parents say, no, it's time to stop. And then try to really build on that. Is that something you can ultimately turn into, your job, your career? Because when I was growing up, even though I was writing, I didn't really know that's, that I could really make that my job, which is why I ended up going to law school and becoming a lawyer. No regrets. I learned a lot. I made a lot of friends, and lawyers pop up in what I write for adults sometimes. But I didn't really see the path to being a writer. It took a while to figure that out. So I really encourage people to think about that earlier, if you can. But that also, as we get older, keep having dreams, keep having things you're reaching for. There's a lot of things I want to do and want to achieve still, even though I'm, at this wonderful age. But I want Dream Street to be a bestseller. I'd love for it to go on and have a series of, more books about some of the people who appear here in Dream Street. So we'll see what happens.
Awesome. I love that. That is very encouraging. You're never too old to dream. Would you be so kind as to share some of the vignettes from this book for us before we go?
Yes, I would love to.
Thank you.
So let me see if I can show the picture too. Oops, I'm doing it wrong. Here we go.
There we go.
Welcome to Dream Street, the best street in the world. Just ask the people who live here. The houses and the dreams inside are different as thumbprints. The sidewalks are wide enough for huge chalk drawings and giant hopscotch boards. Children from all over the neighborhood come to play until the streetlights go on. That's one. And then it just so happens I picked out the one you just mentioned. So let me try to show that. Each morning, unless it's raining, Mr. Sidney reads the newspaper on his stoop. Dressed to the nines, Miss Sarah likes to say. What's the nines? A child will ask. And Miss Sarah will answer, fancy, fancy. Mr. Sidney is a retired mail carrier, living his dream of never having to wear a uniform again. He tips his big brown fedora and greets everyone with, don't wait to have a great day, create one. And then this is the one based on myself and Aqua. I'm writing and she's drawing, but we gave ourselves different names. Edie lives at the top of the hill and searches for treasures that others throw away. She collects smooth rocks, broken jewelry, leaves and feathers, and adds them to her drawings of people on Dream Street. Meanwhile, her cousin Tari pays attention when new folks come around so she can make up stories about them. In her notebook, she scribbles down the things she hears when they don't know she's listening. The cousins dream that someday they'll create a picture book together about everyone they know and meet on Dream Street.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you.
So this is great. I'm so excited for this book. When and how can we get our hands on this book?
So Dream Street actually comes out November 16th. And so it should be available in all bookstores. And so you can go to your favorite one now and pre-order it, or you can wait until the 16th. And it would make a great holiday gift. And the other thing I want to just mention is my mom used to give picture books to grown-ups. So, just because they're a picture book and they say they're for children, they're not just for children. So you can give Dream Street to everybody.
Yes, please go out and get Dream Street. It comes out on November 16th, which is 2 days after this is airing. So please go get it now. And if you don't already have Nana Akua Goes to School, please also add that as well. Add this to your own home library. Give it as a friend. Thank you, Tricia, so much for joining me today. I'm so grateful to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dannielle.
Thank you. So also, if you would like to donate to Adventure Theater, you can visit us at atmtc.org. Look at our website, see what shows we have coming up, see what student productions, what classes. We hope to see you in our space sometime soon. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Tricia. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.